men interned after the 1916 Easter Rising. We have three main events here today. Firstly, naming the bridge in honour of the Doris brothers, founders of the Mayo News, on the right-hand side. We have the centenary of the execution of Major John McBride and the centenary of the 31 Westport internees. I am your MC here today. I'm your MC here today, and we have three guest speakers. Before we begin, please give a rousing welcome to our guests on the stage. Dressed in Irish volunteer uniforms, we have four people just on the left-hand side. Now, I know this is going to get a really good cheer. We have Edna Kilroy, great-granddaughter of General Michael Kilroy, officer commanding of the West Mayo Flying Column in the War of Independence. And she is joined here today by Peadar Kilroy, son of Michael Kilroy, and we're delighted that Peadar is here. We also have, dressed in uniform, John Quinn and Brendan Hughes. And the last person, I think many people will be interested to know him, we have Dominic Price, author of the famous book, The Flame and the Candle. Dominic Price. Welcome to Minister Michael Ring, who has represented this county for the last 22 years in Dáil Éireann. Welcome to John Mayo, long-time chairman of the Westport Historical Society, who are the organisers of the Westport 1916 Centenary Commemoration events. I think the Society deserves a great cheer. Our local clergymen, Father Charlie MacDonald and Reverend Val Rogers, both highly regarded and respected in Westport, are also very welcome. And on the far side, on my left, is Neil O'Neill, Managing Editor of the Mayo News. We also welcome in the audience here today Vice Admiral Mark Mellett, Chief of Staff of the Defence Forces. It's a very unique privilege he's given to Westport today to be here as the descendant of Ódlach na hÉireann. We also have representatives from the Mayo Association in Dublin, Pádraig Jordan, AJ Prendergast, and Michael Cannon. What's unique about the Mayo Association is that Major John founded the organisation with another man called Mr. Lavelle for Castlebar in 1905. So it's a privilege that they have made the connection between the founding and they're here today. For now, can I ask all members of the Doris family to make their way to the bridge on my right. All members of the Doris family to make their way to the bridge for the plaque unveiling and a group photograph. Can I also invite the Cathaoirleach of Mayo County Council, Councillor Michael Holmes, to make his way to the bridge. Just while the Doris family are going over, I was thinking that RTE said it would be 22 degrees, so I'm afraid that Danny Healy-Rae is lost out here today. As the Doris family are going over, we proceed here. 124 years ago, the Doris brothers, William and Patrick J., founded the Mayo News. Today we welcome their many relations to Westport for this historic occasion. We also welcome the Berry family, who have invested in and improved the newspaper in recent years. This week, the Mayo News staff produced a superb 32-page supplement and are generously distributing free copies of it here today. So we thank the Mayo News for that generous gesture. When it was first proposed to name the bridge after the two Doris brothers, it received widespread support in Westport from officials and from county councillors. We especially thank Councillor Brendan Mulroy, Christy Hyland and Teresa Maguire for backing this 1916 project. We must also thank the Doris Brothers Bridge Committee, Seamus Gavin, Neil O'Neill and James Kelly and the Westport Historical Society for organising it. We've also received tremendous support from the officials from Tom Gilligan, Anne Moore and Dermot Langan. Thank you very much. Here to tell us more about the Doris Brothers is Neil O'Neill, Managing Editor of the Mayo News.
Thanks, Harry. Ladies and gentlemen, invited guests, relative of those we honour, we have gathered here today as a community to remember some people who walked these streets before us, forefathers of this town, whose work and commitment to their beliefs has allowed us the right and freedom to come together today with our own flag flying proudly overhead and to have as our special guest in Westport an independent and democratically elected Uachtaráin na hÉireann. The efforts and sacrifice of these people, in some instances the ultimate sacrifice, have left us with much to be thankful for. And while we sometimes might take for granted basic human freedoms and our autonomy as a nation, without their endeavours, our lives would be so much different. Born in Westport in the second half of the 19th century, William and P.J. Doris were brothers who would ultimately have conflicting political beliefs which would drive a wedge between them. Though they would end up estranged, their life's work lives on today in the pages of the Mayo News, which they founded in December 1892 and which remains an institution at the heart of this community. The Westport of 1892 was a different world from that which we know today. In an obituary published in the Mayo News following the death of P.J. Doris in March 1937, it was stated, "The Mayo News was founded with meagre capital by men who were idealists and whose sole ambition was the vindication of the country's wrongs." In his pages, the Irish tenant farmer saw the injustices of his lot so vividly portrayed as to rouse him to action. A firm adherent to the Land League movement and to the United Irish League which, with William O'Brien, he helped found, P.J. Doris devoted his life to the cause of land reform. There was hardly an eviction within the borders of Mayo during the land war at which Mr. Doris was not present with his notebook and pencil. Following the rebellion of 1916, P.J. Doris was arrested and interned in various English prisons, and upon his release, he immediately resumed his campaign against England in the Mayo News. In 1921, the Black and Tans came to Westport to do what was described as silence Doris and the Mayo News for all time. And P.J. had a narrow escape, getting out of his house just before they entered. The Mayo News plant was destroyed on that occasion, but still Doris would not be deterred. Rolling back to 1910, when the elder Doris brother William stood for and successfully won the West Mayo seat in the House of Commons. As newspapers were the main medium of communication at the time, William Doris used the pages of the Mayo News to powerfully convey his message to the population. "Please God, I will never forget, I am the son of a poor man, elected mainly by the poor people of this constituency. While I will not support injustice to anybody, I am a poor man's representative, and I will live and die the poor man's representative," he said upon his election, before moving to London to take up his seat in Parliament. However, the two brothers would soon be on a political collision course that would lead to a separation that lasted for the remainder of their lives. While William pushed the land question in Dublin, P.J. became a fervent supporter of the campaign for outright independence from Britain. William and the Irish Party began to lose support to the increasingly popular Sinn Féin party at the time, and P.J. began actively supporting Sinn Féin in the Mayo News, which saw the paper being banned for a time. William Doris failed in a subsequent election bid in 1918, and when the candidate preferred by his brother P.J. won and was promoted by the Mayo News at the expense of their co-founder, there was a lot of trouble in the camp with the Doris brothers. William moved to Dublin and the bond between the two was irreparably broken. Today, almost a century and a quarter after they founded the Mayo News, we have gathered in Westport to make a small gesture to these two local pioneers of our town and of our republic. It is fitting that the bridge on James Street should be named in honour of William and PJ Doris, a bridge they use daily on a street where their life's work was created and where much of the events of their lives took place. Westport Historical Society should be commended for their foresight on this initiative, and we in the Mayo News of today, the Berry family and the staff and management, as custodians of their legacy, are proud to be associated with this tribute to our founding fathers. Thank you.